Last March, a paper landed online claiming that these new language models had quietly passed the Turing test. The test relies on a simple premise. Can a machine hold a conversation well enough to fool you into thinking it's human? For 75 years, nothing could. Then, suddenly, the evidence suggested something did, triggering a wave of polarized reactions between celebration and immediate dismissal. While the modern participants feel they are breaking new ground, this argument actually dates back to 1637. That year, René Descartes published his Discourse on the Method. He imagined a machine that looked and moved exactly like a person, and then asked how we would actually know it wasn't one. He proposed a specific behavioral check. You could build a machine to make a sound when touched, one that cries out in pain if you hit it. But Descartes argued it would fail to arrange those words freely to reply to the flow of unpredictable conversation. We have spent 4 centuries drawing a line in the sand between human thought and machine automation. Every single time that our technology finally reaches that boundary line, we simply pick it up and move it further away. In the 1830s, Ada Lovelace studied the plans for Charles Babbage's mechanical computer. She realized that if the right rules were applied, its numerical quantities could represent notes, colors, or letters, extending the machine's reach into the realm of natural language. But she set a strict limit on what that machine could achieve. A computer, she argued, can follow incredibly complex rules, but it has no power to originate an idea. It does only what we know how to order it to perform. A century later, in 1950, Alan Turing directly challenged that definition of originality. Turing pointed out that everything we call original in humans is actually the internal reshaping of information we were taught by parents, schools, and books. We are built out of everything loaded into us before we ever start to think for ourselves. When a human student combines their training to write a cohesive essay, we call that thinking. Turing's argument was that we cannot logically use a different word just because a machine is executing that same process at a larger scale. By the mid-20th century, researchers were exploring whether intent and intelligence could exist entirely outside the biological brain. Engineers watched automated anti-aircraft guns use mechanical feedback loops to track fast-moving planes. From the outside, the way those gears sensed and corrected their own path looked identical to human intention. Behaviorist B.F. Skinner took this further by training live pigeons to guide missiles. The birds produced steering curves as precise as a calculus equation, raising the question of whether biological behavior is proof of intelligence or just a well-optimized training set. Extended mind theory eventually suggested that outsourcing our memories to smartphones and notebooks means our cognition isn't actually sealed inside our skulls. If the human mind flows freely into its tools, the rigid border Descartes tried to build between physical matter and the thinking mind ceases to exist. In 1980, philosopher John Searle attempted to end the debate with a thought experiment called the Chinese room. Imagine you are locked in a room and don't speak a word of Chinese. You receive symbols through a slot and use a massive rulebook to determine which symbols to slide back out. To those outside, you appear fluent. Inside, you are simply following instructions without understanding a single character. Searle argued that the person inside is merely shuffling symbols. In his view, a computer is doing the exact same thing, simulating the behavior of understanding while being completely devoid of the experience. The systemic counterargument is that the understanding doesn't need to live inside the person. It lives in the whole setup. When the room provides a fluent answer, the comprehension is a property of the person, the rulebook, and the room working together. Intelligence, in this view, is an emergent property of the whole system. This suggests that inanimate matter, when organized correctly, can host a functioning mind. To escape this historical loop, we look at an engineering concept called the abstraction layer. When you drive a car, you think about your destination, not the timing of the fuel injection. The destination is a high abstraction layer, the engine mechanics a low one. Applying this to AI changes the goal. Endlessly debating whether a model has a rich inner life is a low-level abstraction that distracts us from the practical reality of using the tool. The useful questions for any user are whether the output is reliable for the task at hand, and who is on the hook if it fails. Real-world research proves the necessity of this shift. Psychologists have begun administering standard personality tests to modern language models to see how they actually behave. The findings are consistent. GPT-4 regularly scores high in openness, while models like Claude often lean toward being guarded. This is where the debate matters. A rule-bound system carries a moral and psychological tone. Every response it generates will drift in the direction of those quiet biases, influencing corporate policies, drafting legal memos, or lesson plans. Noticing and managing these baked-in slants before hitting publish is a more critical task than deciding if the machine is conscious. We do not ask if machines can think to understand the hardware. We ask because consciousness is relational. We are looking for a point of reference, a mirror to help us define what we are.